No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hello, friends. This is the About to Break podcast, the show where we talk to artists and entertainers about the ups and downs of life in the entertainment business. This week on the show, I have the incredible magician, Jon Armstrong. Great conversation. Had a lot of fun with Jon. We haven't spent too much time together. We've done shows together here and there. But this was our first time really sitting down in depth. Went and grabbed some lunch at the wonderful Molly Super here in Upland. And then we sat down and just had a great conversation. Can't wait to share it with you. A lot of good stuff. Jon gives a lot of tips that are going to help, definitely going to help magicians, but also anyone who's in entertainment, any performing artists. There's lots of good stuff in this episode. Before we get into it, I wanted to give you a little announcement. We are coming up on 100 episodes. This is episode 95 of the podcast. You know, it's almost 2 years since we started this podcast, and I have learned so much, and it's been an incredible journey for me, and we're going to keep it going. This is not an announcement about stopping the podcast. This is, if anything, an announcement that I'm really, really excited about where we're headed in the future. I've gotten a lot of great feedback and great ideas from friends and listeners of the show, and I want to start putting together some new segments and just adding a little more value with some different aspects of the show, but it's going to take some time. So here's what we're going to do. Right now, we're putting this episode out, episode 95, and then next week is Thanksgiving. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take time off from when this episode comes out till the first of the year, which is just about 6 weeks. So in that time, I'm going to still be working on the show, but we're not going to post episodes for about 6 weeks. I know that's a long time. I know that we've been pretty good about putting episodes out every single Wednesday, but I think you're going to be really excited about what we do with this. We're going to have new segments, new guests. We're going to be doing a countdown to 100 episodes. Even though we won't be posting, I'm still going to be recording. I've already got some great interviews lined up that I can't wait to share with you. And yeah, so that's it. That's the big exciting news. We're taking a break so we can make this thing bigger and better starting the first of the year. Thank you to everyone for your continued support. Thank you to everyone who's producing the show, our sponsors on Patreon. For $1 or more, you can be a producer of the show. We're going to keep building things, so thank you for your ongoing support there. And thank you to everyone who's leaving reviews on iTunes. So many people hear about this show because they were scrolling through, they saw the show. Thank you for telling friends, family, coworkers about this thing. It's just a tremendous joy to be able to do this, and I'm looking forward to the next year's shows. It's going to be awesome. If you're anywhere near Lake Tahoe, Carson City, Reno, Nevada, I will be performing at the Loft in Lake Tahoe, November 15th through the 20th. And then we're celebrating Thanksgiving. We're taking a week off. And then I'll be at the Magic Castle November 26th through December 2nd with my good buddy Jimmy H. Can't wait for that. We got a fun show. And that's it. Let's get into the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, Jon Armstrong is on the show this week. Jon's an incredible performer. Very funny, very witty, very brilliant card mechanic, and can do things with a deck of cards that I can only dream of. The last 5 years, Jon has really transitioned from being a close-up kind of one-on-one performer with cards and coins and things like that, and then really stepping away from just doing that. Still does that and does it very well, but really transitioning into a stand-up performer, doing magic for larger audiences and working, 1,000-seat theaters on cruise ships. And so we talk a lot about that transition on here, and he shares a lot of things that I think will help you in your journey as you're just trying to continue moving forward and growing your craft, and really whatever your art is, whether it's music or acting or dance or magic or juggling, whatever it is, just trying to get to that next level. Jon shares tons of great stuff on here. I know you're going to enjoy it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 95 of the About to Break podcast, my conversation with Jon Armstrong. Hey everybody, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host, Taylor Hughes, and right now I'm sitting down in the World Shed Quarters with the incredible, the amazing, the wonderful Jon Armstrong. Did you like that?
It was great. It was great. I laughed so hard My hat hit the microphone because I was just amazed by the wonder that was your introduction.
The wonder, yeah. I told you I'd make a nice one later.
Oh yeah, no,
they will have already heard the really nice one where I talk about
stuff that you don't remember.
Like
on the top of your head.
look, magicians who are listening or know, and a lot of other people know, John is like the best close-up magician ever. Hands down.
That is being. There's a lot of people gonna be pissed off by that.
I don't really
statement
care.
right
I don't really care. I told you. Can I tell the story about what?
Sure.
About the one that happened at the castle?
sure.
Is that appropriate to say?
Well, absolutely.
So I was at the Magic Castle one night. We're down in. What do we call that now? We just redid that room.
They call it the Cellar, which I still
Yes.
don't like the name, but it was the museum.
It was the museum.
I'm glad they're not calling it the museum anymore because it was always a misnomer.
Right.
Because it really wasn't a museum.
Because then we have the museum over by the library.
Right, because that actually is a museum.
Right.
They have actual museum pieces. But the room they call the museum just had random stuff in little, like cubby holes.
Right.
And it wasn't very good. But now they call it the Cellar.
Yeah.
Because it rhymes with Peller, I guess.
Is that
to make it even more confusing?
Because
to
we have the
people?
palace, we have the Peller, we have the parlor,
right?
We have the cellar,
exactly. And the Peller is only named that because it's named after a person,
right?
Because
the Albert Peller,
Peller, because he named it after the person who actually gave them money to
build it.
Yeah. So that's what that's about. But it's still very confusing.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah,
because everything down in that area looks like a cellar, except that actual room they call the cellar.
Exactly. Though because you think about it, you do the close-up gallery.
Yeah,
you win the close-up award.
Yes, this is true. Yeah,
parlor.
Yeah,
parlor award. Stage award. I think we need to think about what actually Peller magic is. There needs to be a complete idea of what we can consider Peller magic. What is Peller magic?
Yeah.
It doesn't really exist.
It doesn't.
Yeah. It's this weird hybrid between close-up parlor and two acts that don't like each other working together. I think that's what that is. It's a convergence of...
Yeah. It's kind of like a magic cage match. Let's put these two guys with differing personalities together.
Have you ever seen the Peller when it is obviously two performers who either A, don't know each other at all, or B, don't really like each other that much?
Oh,
Have you ever seen it?
I've seen it.
It's pretty great.
It's amazingly passive aggressive.
Yeah, it's very passive aggressive.
It's clearly we both wanted to be in the parlor, but they gave us a week in the Peller.
Yeah, not even a week. You get 4 days. Back then it was 4 days. Now it's 5 days.
Yeah.
But yes. I get to work with that guy again.
Yeah. I'm doing the Peller with Jimmy, who we grew up together.
Yeah, but that's
so it's fun.
It's
fun, and we're doing a week.
And I have done the Peller. I've been lucky that I've always done the Peller with a person that I like that. We work on a show together. Like I've worked with Bob, and I've worked with Nick Paul, and I've worked with Rob Gould. It's fun. That's fun. But most of the time, you could go in that room and you're like, wow, those guys are not having a good week.
Right.
Yeah.
But the premise, for those of you who haven't visited the castle or don't know, there's a room, and they thought, hey, let's take two acts that normally don't work together,
right,
and potentially don't even know each other.
True.
And let's put them in a room and tell them to come up with a show that makes sense.
And genius has come out of that. Derek Ogadio and him shows with the Helder that became a huge thing.
Right.
I mean, really good has come out of this.
When people play by the rules of or
they make a show out of it as opposed to making I'm going to do my 20 minutes and then leave, and then you can do your 20 minutes. Yep. We'll see you later.
Yeah, totally.
That's it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So we're in the cellar one night. I'm in the cellar. I've got some guests, and when you bring guests to the castle, there is a little bit of a science to getting them to see good magic because depending on when their dinner is or if they're not having dinner, how do you get them into a room and all of this? So I hear Jon Armstrong is down in the cellar, and I'm like, we are going. So I take him down there, and that night, you were performing and everyone was loving it, and there was one guy with a date. I don't know if they were married, but this guy and this gal are right in the front row, and this guy is just doing all the things you don't want a spectator to do.
Right.
He's grabbing things and he's yelling and he's stepping on jokes, and he's just the whole audience is like, you could feel like the audience was turning against this guy.
Yes. They hated him.
Yeah, they did not enjoy this fellow. Meanwhile, John's just doing freaking miracles with cardboard. And then all of a sudden, this guy grabs a playing card and puts it down and goes, what card do I have?
That's what he did, yes.
Yeah.
And then I said, I can tell you, sure. And then it was $100. I said $100.
Yeah, and so the guy pulls the guy pulls out $100, and John pulls out $100.
Exactly.
And he slaps
so
it.
I'll bet you $100.
Yeah,
yeah.
And the best thing is you pulled out like a billfold that had like so much cash. You're like,
that's for my father. My father always said you had to carry cash.
Yeah, it's like it was a good night, and everyone was like, "Oh man, that's great." He slaps it down. So then he guesses the guy's card, and then the guy's like, "Double or nothing."
Exactly. Yes.
And John throws. He's like, "Sir, you don't want to." He was.
I tried to talk him out of it.
He was
I
like,
tried to talk him out of it, sir.
You don't
I have
want to
a huge
do this.
advantage here.
Yeah.
You don't want to do this.
You don't want to do this. And then, sure enough, John was like, "What do you think, guys? Should I keep his money?" The whole audience was like, "Yeah." It's amazing. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
It was fantastic.
That guy got what he deserved.
Yeah.
And I got $200, which is what I deserved for putting up with that guy for that long.
Oh, here's what I loved is today we went and had lunch, and we're at this little cafe by our house. And John,
very lovely cafe.
It was fun. Molly's super.
It's a very nice place.
I feel like, did you ever watch Gilmore Girls?
I did not.
I feel like that it would be a place in Gilmore Girls.
I see.
I don't know why I brought that up.
Okay, good. All right. Well, hey,
we're there. We're
sure.
there having our, next to the ladies having mimosas, and then the family having their lunch.
Right.
And John's demonstrate. This is how good John is. He's literally teaching me how he's doing what he's doing, and someone next to him has no idea what's going on, and their mind is just blown. We're having a private conversation. He's showing me something, and this person at the table next to him is just dying, trying to figure out what in the world is happening. It's amazing.
It was nice. I actually, you know what? I the only thing I regret is I should have actually turned to him and did a trick, but I was sort of like I was thinking about this thing I was trying to explain to you.
I think he enjoyed what he saw. It was amazing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was having fun, man. Do you still get this way with magic? I mean, we both talk about how, I think we both have. It's easy in this business to get disillusioned with seeing so much performance that you can't shut off the kind of the critical, this or that. But do you ever get in those moments where you're watching a performance and you just get like taken back to being a kid again? I mean, I was watching you doing card tricks and just going, "This is great, man."
Yeah, no, it definitely happens. It happens when I see someone who's like some of the Spanish guys, like like those guys, or when I lately now when I've been seeing like acts that are just are really revolutionary, and even if I'm not necessarily into the style of magic, I still appreciate, like I'll never do a stand-up manipulation card act, but those guys from Korea, holy, that's amazing, and it's very visceral, that magic. I have fallen in love and out of love with magic 3 times, and I'm back in love with magic again.
Oh, I want to hear about all these times
and
that you fell out of love with it.
Yeah, and I'm back in love with it again, and for different reasons. And it's fun because now that I'm not 100% dependent upon close-up magic to be sort of my livelihood, because I've been doing other stuff. I'm far more interested in actually playing with it again and seeing it again and performing it again. And it's been a lot of fun. Like I used to be like not like actively just hate it, actively hate it. And it's become very recently that I've been able to go, "Oh, yeah, this is still pretty fun. This is still cool stuff. I'm glad I'm still part of this."
You think it's somewhat to do with the fact that now you're doing a lot of stage performance and you don't have to always be doing card tricks for people or close-up stuff.
I mean, I'm not dependent upon a deck of cards to make a living anymore. You know? And I'm not dependent upon just the rigors of close-up magic and what I'm trying to do with my close-up magic, and I can just kind of play, and it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm not like I have to do it this way, and then because that's the only way I'm going to be able to make a living at it. And that's it's very liberating. It's fun, But really, honestly, I mean, as far as that, it comes from the fact that like I said, I've fallen in love with magic a couple times, and mostly because of outside political factors, and inside political factors of magic is usually what kind of makes me go, I've never gotten out of magic. I've never ever once.
Right.
I can't. Have you ever seen those guys on? I don't want to point anybody out, but you ever seen those guys on like Facebook who will like announce, "I'm getting out of magic. I'm leaving magic."
Yeah.
And then like 2 or 3 months later, they're putting this new product out. You know what I mean? Like it's whatever ridiculous.
Yeah.
I will never do
the
that.
newest
I will
product called "I Ran Out of Cash."
Exactly. Like I will never get out of magic, but I can definitely tell you there was times where I have felt more withdrawn from either the magic community or from just the aspect of it being like my hobby. And I maintain to this day, magic has never been my hobby. It's never been my hobby. It's
from day one.
Magic has been my obsession, my passion, my career.
Yeah.
But it has never been my hobby. My hobby is comic books, is theme parks, is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The joke I always make is, the order of things in my life are my wife, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, magic, everything else. That's essentially where everything is for me. And I that's what I care about. That's what I care about. And I don't like, so someone has said to me, "Oh, have you seen this show, this TV show with this magician on it?" Or this? Nope.
Right. Yeah.
I have seen exactly 5 Fool's performances. One of them being my own.
Okay.
One of them being Piff.
Yep.
I don't really watch any magic on TV. I've never seen a single episode of
Is that because you don't want your work to be influenced by other people's acts, or is it just because you're not consuming it as a fan of magic? I would love to be able to say I'm trying to keep myself pure. No, that would be complete bullshit.
The truth is that if I have the option between reading the latest issue of Detective Comics, or watching a TV show related to magic, I'm going to read Detective Comics.
Yeah,
I'm going to go and see another movie. I'm going to go if my downtime is between this and this and something else related to magic, I'm always going to go away from that, because that's not what I wanted to do my free time on. That said, I subscribe to all of the Penguin lectures.
Yeah.
I have a subscription to the Penguin thing, what they're doing with every trick in the book. It's all it's every trick in Tower Bell.
Yeah,
amazing. Because I will watch lectures because I consider that part of my job.
Right, it's education for your work.
I will read magic books when it's time for me to do my job in the allotted job time.
Right,
because that's stuff that I'm actually learning from.
Yeah,
and because I actively seek out, when it comes to magic performances, lectures or reading about in books and things like that, then when I'm inspired by something in that, I feel I have the right, for lack of a better term, to work on those ideas.
Right.
If I was inspired by something I saw in a performance, then that would be very weird. That would get a weird gray area.
Right.
So the byproduct of that is that I don't fall under the trap of wanting to do other people's acts that I see on TV or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But that's not the real reason why that started. It's really just a side effect.
Yeah.
The real reason is if I have downtime, I'm not going to watch magic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the more you do of it too. I mean, like when you're starting off and you want to become a magician or you want to become a performer, your life is consumed with, it's like people who want to be improvisers, they go at first from being fans of improv where they just go to improv shows all the time.
Right.
And then when they go, I want to be an improviser, well, then you got to go take classes and be doing shows.
Right.
Like you watching someone else do improv is not going to make you a better improviser.
Absolutely.
We were talking about stage time, about just the sheer reps of doing multiple shows a night for consecutive nights. There's nothing like that, you could read every magic book in the world. You're not going to become a better performer until you start performing.
You might be lucky and you get to do 4 minutes on an open mic, 5 minutes on an open mic.
Gosh.
You might be lucky. Yeah. If you're a member of the Magic Castle, you might be lucky to sign up for one of the 2 available slots on a Friday night to do your 18 to 20 minute act, usually having to stand in front of a table.
Yep.
Again, if you're a close-up guy, it's fine. But if you want to do stand-up, it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, one of the reasons why parlor magic, stand-up magic, whatever you want to call it, comedy is stand-up comedy magic, ends up sometimes being kind of shitty.
Yeah.
Hacky is because there really isn't a place for someone to really get the same sort of experience you would be able to when you were able to do close-up stuff for your friends and family and just keep doing it over and over and over and over again.
Yep.
It's that you know, we are basically 24 hours a day in a walk-around situation. Right?
Yeah, street magic is my life.
Exactly. There's no reason why you can't just walk around and do magic for people at any time for free.
Yeah, but if you're doing comedy magic or you're doing like parlor or stand-up, you can't just be like, hey, let me do a tight 5.
Exactly. You know, and then just being able to put so like, let's say you were able to get like a weekly spot where you're able to do 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. That's still 20 minutes. Trying to build a 45-minute show. Trying to put everything together into that show. It's super hard to be able to actually figure out the format of that show. And then there might be entire pieces of that show that are dependent upon things that happened previous to that. Tie-ins, callbacks, threads that run through all the show. And if you don't do those other pieces, it doesn't make any sense. So you can't put together that 45-minute show. It's super hard. And that's one of the things that I learned when I decided that I was going to, and maybe we're way jumping the gun, but when I decided...
we just go.
But when I decided that I was going to basically sort of not phase out completely, but not make close-up magic my focus and start working on stage as much as I could, is that there was... One of the reasons why I think it's so hard to make that jump is just the lack of ability to actually find places to be bad. And be able to do it. So that's one. And then two, because of the moat that's basically between you and the audience, right? You're used to people being close to you.
You used to literally reach out
instant reaction. Instant reaction. And so when the jokes don't land exactly the same way, and the effects are a little different, and you have to bring somebody on stage, and you don't know how to deal with the other human.
Now I have a microphone.
What's going on?
What am I doing with this mic stand?
All of that just sort of like really takes you out of that. And there was a time where when I was doing stand-up stuff, and then I would go do a corporate gig where I was just walking around doing close-up. It really pissed me off. These people didn't realize that how good I was when I was at the corporate gig. You see what I'm saying? Like, I was on stage, I'd do my show, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's fine." But then, and I would leave, and I'm like, "You guys don't understand. I am super good at this magic stuff, but I'm still learning this part of it."
Well, and in a corporate, the environment's totally different. Like corporate magic to me, and that's where most of my income comes from. But corporate magic to me often feels like doing strolling. You're interrupting an entire room of people who didn't even know you were going to be there and saying, watch me for an hour.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting that, though. That's absolutely.
And the same thing with strolling with cards or with coins, like walking up to a group, there's a skill and a technique and a way to do it where you're inviting them to be a part of something without taking them away from the thing that they're already doing, Yeah, it's...
No one came there to see you, and that... But I recently just taught a course. I've learned a lot in the last 5 years, and I taught this course at the Castle, which was basically like this, my journey from close-up to stand-up. And it was great because it was great because it was great for me to be able to write down all these sort of these thoughts I had and to say, look, this is what I've been learning and what I feel like is the real sort of progression from this point where you're very comfortable doing sort of this small group intimate magic, even though Castle Close-Up is more like a formal show,
right? But
even then, being able to go from that to being able to standing up and what I felt were the rules to stand-up magic, that to me you couldn't be standing behind a table, really. Or at least the majority of the show, you had to be, out in front, and that as soon as you brought somebody on out of the audience, you were the second most important person on that stage. That they were the most important, they were the most interesting person, and how you actually interact with them, and it was really good, I think, to to do that class, because I learned a lot in that class, because I was like, oh yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I watched these people who were trying to put their ideas together, because we did like workshops where they would actually perform, and you could see them still stepping on the same, falling in the same pitfalls that I fell into.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. I mean, all the body language stuff, putting everything lower, because that's how we're used to doing it when you're doing walk arounds. You know what I mean? Like not understanding blocking at all.
Yeah.
Not understanding that, like, for a good amount of time, the audience, when you were doing walk around, would only see the top half of you, but now they say all of you.
Right.
So what are your feet doing? What are your, where are you standing? That steel doesn't look so good when you're completely exposed on stage.
Right. Oh yeah.
All of that stuff. And it's, it was good. I'm glad I was able to do that in my penguin lecture that I just did. My penguin act, they're calling it now. Talked a lot about that, about just how you actually get from close up to parlor.
That's so good, because there's a lot of guys. I mean, how many guys have you talked to that say, like, I want to do this? Like,
a lot. And I think everyone went into mentalism. I think everyone decided that mentalism was the only way to go. Like, the joke I make is that everyone went through mental pause.
Right.
And everyone's like, all right, so now I'm just going to, and they do basically the same basic mentalism act. And I immediately went, I don't want to do that. I love mentalism. It's not anti-mentalism at all. It's just like, I wanted to try something different. Yeah. So I went the opposite direction. I was like, I'm going to try to pack big, play big. Yeah. I'm going to pack a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of props. So yeah.
Yeah. It's another thing we were talking about at lunch, is that, oftentimes we think like, oh yeah, this will play for this big group. And then,
well, that's the thing. That's the thing I was talking about with mentalism. Sometimes it's like, okay, sir, please name your favorite color, and you, ma'am, any car, and you name the vacation you want to go on. Okay, so you said green, and you said Buick, and you said you want to go Hawaii, and now for this group of 1,000 people, I have here this small, tiny envelope.
I have predicted it on this grain of rice,
this little tiny thing. Yeah. I mean, like, that makes no sense.
Right. Yeah.
If you were really predicting something that was going to happen, and there was going to be that many people,
right?
Obviously, you should have made it as big as possible. Which is why, like certain things that have hit the market, like the Master Prediction Chest, and, even Bill Abbott's No Brainer thing, like that. That's gotten a lot of play, a lot of market, because it's just a big thing that plays very large, and you can actually do it. But that said, like, I'm amazed by how much mentalism has sort of like flooded into the market, and people have really forgotten about like really good standard apparatus magic. And, like, there's really good stuff out there.
And people, I really do think people come to a magic show, regardless of what people say, they're expecting, they're going to see some props, they're going to see some stage set, they're going to see something, and I've had clients too that expect those kind of things, like, you come in sometimes with your suitcase or your briefcase, and they go like, where's all your stuff? You need help unloading it? It's like, no, this is it. Well, you got to give people what they want sometimes. Yeah.
I just wanted to try to do something that was not what everybody else was doing, which was
That's a new idea in magic.
Mentalism. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, there's only so many tricks I can see with the Rubik's Cube. There's only so many tricks I can see with envelopes and stationery. And, I guess if that's where you're going, if you can somehow justify a really smart, mentalism character, then I guess that works. But for me, like, I just wanted to be the same guy that I was in close up.
Yeah.
On stage.
Yeah.
And it took me a second, more than a second, honestly. It took me a second to figure out that exact leap and where it was.
Right.
And I'm not kidding. I've been doing this for 5 years, and only in the last year do I really feel like
I've been doing the stage stuff
for 5 years, yeah. Because I've been doing magic since I was 14, really professionally my entire life, but like earnest when I was 14, and got the bug when I was 8. But 5 years of this, and just in the last year do I feel like I'm finally comfortable. I just told my wife I did a gig, did this thing, and a stand-up gig, and it was like, I was just up there riffing, which is what I do. If you ever see me actually do magic, magic, it's me that I cards and a lot of improv, just talking, and that's all I'm really doing. I'm just sort of playing in the moment.
Right.
And I finally is as comfortable now with the stand-up stuff that I'm doing.
That's great.
That I can feel like I can do those riffs and play and do all that.
Oh, that's the best.
And it's taken me a long time. And I think the reason why it's taken as long as it has, obviously some of that is my own personal growth and my own cycle, but just that I didn't have this place to be able to just constantly cycle this material out.
When you decided, because I mean, you were what most people would look at what you did with Close Up and go, wow, he did everything anyone would ever want to do.
Sure, I guess.
What was it when you made the decision to go, I want to do stand-up? Was it that you were sick of Close-Up? Was it that you were wanting more work?
I was very disenchanted with magic in general.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I guess I've fallen in love with magic 3 times. So fallen in love when I was a kid. I worked at Disney, did my show
in Orlando,
right? At Orlando Disney World. And from when I was 20 to 25, it was a very big thing for me. And then in the year 2000, I left and I moved to Vegas. And because I thought everybody, the joke was at that time, that's what you do. Yeah. And because they're handing out production shows at the airport, right?
Right.
And they were not. And I fell very quickly into like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Right. I never seen, I was basically a bigger fish in a smaller pond. Not a small pond, but a smaller pond in Orlando. I moved to Vegas, and I'm a tiny fish in a gigantic pond.
Magic mecca.
Yeah. And these guys were just beating the crap out of each other for gigs, because this is when a lot of those shows were, everything was going to complete four-wall.
Four-wall, yeah.
And the idea of like...
Would you say this was 2005?
No, 2000.
2000.
Okay, this is the end of Caesar's Magical Empire.
Yep. Nobody's got contracts anymore.
This is a completely different thing. And so people were beating each other up for these small gigs. So it was a lot of cutthroatness. And I got very disenchanted with magic and the magic community very quickly.
Yeah.
Just through some personal experiences. And then I got very lucky, and I got to Caesar's Magical Empire, and I was performing at Caesar's Magical Empire, and I didn't like living in Vegas. I hated living in Vegas. I hated it so much.
I feel like Vegas is just an entire group of people going, this is fun, right? We're enjoying ourselves, right?
The joke I always made was, it's like they took all the trailer parks in the world and just pushed them into one location.
It's like if Walmart had no walls.
Yeah, I just didn't want to be there. And look, it's a little different now. I mean, I think there's actually some stuff there as culture. People have actually made a very nice little community of magicians there. I don't think it's the same way as it was back then. But I hated it. So when Caesar's Magical Empire was going to close, I wanted to move out to be around the castle.
Right.
And because I felt like that's really, really ultimately where I wanted to be. And so, true story, the last day I'm at Caesar's Magical Empire, my actual last performance, I packed my U-Haul.
Yeah.
All my stuff. I valeted the U-Haul. I did my show.
Valeted the U-Haul?
I valeted the U-Haul. I did my show. Got into the U-Haul and drove to LA.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I always felt about it. So I was like, I'm in LA and I'm at the castle, and I was just sort of like trying to get back into falling in love with magic again. And I did. And the castle was a really great place for me just to be able to sit around and do that.
Right.
But eventually, politics and magic politics rears its ugly head.
Right.
And that's when we had essentially the coup, if you know anything about that. I mean, the stuff that happened with the politics of the castle, where there was a battle for the soul of the castle. The castle was going to close.
Right.
It was they were losing
property.
losing the property, $1 million a year. The president was ousted. That's when Neil Patrick
and we were
Harris,
outsourcing like a lot of this, like the food and beverage and the valet.
Ridiculous.
Like everything was outsourced.
And there's all this contracting stuff. And again, it's very complicated. I'm being very general.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't have to correct me. I know the real story, but it's very long, and I don't want to get into all that.
It's fine.
But obviously, that's, the general gist of it was that Neil Patrick Harris becomes the president. I ran for the board, got on the board. This is around this time we had this coup, and we were there to try to hopefully save the castle. And then the fire happened.
Yeah.
And then we were there. And so I had to deal with all of that. So we helped, doing all that. And that's when I realized, boy, that was really awful. Yeah. Fell out of love with magic because of the whole politics of that. And then things were getting back to order and normal, and things were going way well. And what does success usually bring? People who are detractors who miss the way things used to be.
Right.
And so about the third time that's when I exited the board.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with Magic Politics. For a while, I was very not anti the castle in the general sense, but just like, I don't need to be there that much. I don't need to be around it.
Yeah.
And the straw that broke the camel's back really for me in that regard is that I always performed there many, many times a year in different rooms and did stuff. And there were people who just genuinely, maybe because they couldn't get booked themselves or whatever, were like, well, the only reason he gets booked is because he's on the board. And that really bothered me.
Right.
Because it's like the only reason,
right.
not the little wand that says Close-Up Magician of the Year,
right.
or the fact that I'm good at this or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if you didn't have a right to be there,
right.
or
exactly. But the only reason I'm being booked. So I was like, okay, I don't have to get booked at all. So I kind of pulled myself back from that. And that's to get back to answer your question. That's when I decided, you know what, I made sort of a real sort of introspective look at myself, and I went, okay, what do I want to be doing?
Yeah. How do I want to spend my life?
How do I want to spend my life?
Yeah.
Do I want to be doing walk around gigs in the Los Angeles area, or do I want to really travel? Do I want to be able to go out there? What I need to do that?
Right.
And that's when I realized I always had like a little stand-up show that would be fine. That was fine.
Yeah.
But that I needed to really sort of refocus at. And that's lately where I'm back in love with magic again, because I fell in love with this, and I truly mean this, underexplored art. Yeah. This middle ground. Like stage magic, is a lot of stuff on stage magic, and there's a lot of stuff on close-up magic. A lot of stuff on close-up magic. But this middle ground has really never been sort of deeply explored. A lot of people have been talking about it a lot. Lovick, and Scott Alexander, Bill Abbott, guys have been really talking about it lately. But I want to be exploring this middle ground and seeing what I can do. And that was fun for me. Like really finding then the more classic acts like the Alex Jacksons and the Billy McCombs, who's a genius, and Carrie Seabrook and those guys. So like looking at these classical stand-up magic acts and trying to find what plays and what works and what doesn't, and so on and so forth. And that's when I fell back into love of magic again, because I was able to find something that I was uniquely not what everybody else was doing.
Right.
And at the same time, allowed me to then sort of reappreciate the fact that I actually was still very good, get close up, and I could do that too. So that's where I am now. Now. I feel a lot happier, a lot more adjusted. I'm not worried about, and I can go back to the castle now and have a good time, and everyone's happy. So
that's great, man. Well, and you've built up, hours and hours of close-up material in your repertoire. Like you are able to draw from that, but not spend so much time.
Yeah.
It's like a great musician. They don't have to practice as much 20 years down the road as they did when they were first starting. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen you do the bar and like not repeat an effect, which just is mind blowing to me, because my close-up act is Michael Ammer, Easy to Master Card Miracles.
Well, hey, it works. That's the thing, is that I have this large repertoire in my head. I'm not a really good whole cloth creator of magic. When I mean a whole cloth, I mean like being able to invent magic right out of nothing,
out of the gate,
out of clear blue sky. Like David Regal, that guy, he can do that. You know what I mean? There's guys who are really good at that magic creation. Yeah. And I'm more of a researcher and developer editor, and that's. I take a lot of stuff in,
make it your own.
Try to make it my own.
Yep.
And find the other pieces and put things together. And in the research, being able to actually look at sort of a history of magic of a certain effect and realize that like there's so much buried, because you didn't just publish like the one little move, you published the entire routine.
Whole thing, yeah.
And then the routine would not be that great, but there'd be
one
move.
Transition piece.
And so exactly. And so I start playing with all that and put together. And that's always been my strong suit. So because of that, I just have this. I've stored it all in my head. I'm afraid one day it's all going to leak out, but I've stored it all in my head, and I've been approaching stand-up magic the same way. Yeah. Which is why when I said in my this thing I did, this penguin act, I said I have like 3 45-minute shows in this case, it's because I have this material that I can use whenever I need to, because I figured out multiple uses of the same props, or use same props could be like cards, of course. So that's all we do. But the idea is that I'm constantly working on new material. You'll ask my wife. The packages that come in of just random stuff, either magic stuff or just stuff from Amazon that I get so I can build the things I've had this idea for. And
why do you have 3 different paper shredders? They're important.
Very important paper shredders. But that's the thing, is I want to build, like, I want to come up with a large amount of repertoire, because to me, even though I have, like you said, like when I do the bar and I'm there, I can perform for 4 hours straight without repeating a trick. I always have like the A material I fall back on. You know, this stuff that is like, if I'm only going to do 20 minutes, this is the 20 minutes I'm going to do. Yeah. So I'm approaching stand-up magic the same way. I'm going to build out all this stuff. Yeah. And then eventually build down to that 45 minutes that is going to be the A material that I'll stand that for. But then if I needed more time, I have all that extra time. That's good. That's kind of where I am with all this right now. Yeah. It's still a work in progress. Like, I don't think I got this mastered.
I think really that's something that you have to do. Like, even if you want to work, you have to have the ability to customize material for the event, for the engagement, for the show. But you also, like, I can't tell you how many times I'll do an event and they'll go, hey, this was great. We have this other event we're doing 2 months from now. Can you come and do a different 45 minutes? Yeah. And a lot of people don't have the ability to do that because they're not, like you're saying, always constantly trying to find and play with and tweak and all of this.
I think I honestly think that's the way to go for me. Now, there's a lot of people who would say, work on your act, build small things in your act. Yeah. Everything has to be built in the modular section to build out the act, and you only do your act. Yeah. And that makes sense. I don't disagree with that in the major sense. But I guess, like, my ability, for lack of a better term, is that I've always been able to retain all this information. Like, I just have a storehouse of stuff in here. Yeah. And if I can build out and do solid material that then sort of, like, maybe it's not as solid as the A-ish material, but is solid enough that if I mix it into other things, it would build the show. I actually think that's a strong way to then move magic forward, as opposing to just always doing the exact same things in the exact same way.
And that's where, when I fall out of love with magic, which happens quite a bit, it's realizing that, you know, the benefit of living in LA and, like, being a junior at the castle was I was exposed to all these amazing performances as a kid. But then you see some people who 30 years later are doing the same act. Yeah. And to me, and that's great. If you can do that and you want to do that and you can make a living doing that, great. To me, that's death. Like, I in my mind can't fathom just doing the same thing for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't understand that either. I think that's why my act has always been so improv. So in the pieces that I still do, like, you know, Tiny Plunger or whatever, you know, like, I still, like, I always have moments where I can riff, and, you know, each show's different, you know? Yeah. And then I never understood, like, people who are still doing the acts from 30 years ago, but have never then updated for the current time,
same music
or climate.
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, music.
Climate,
music is one thing,
right?
But, like, I mean, doing an act that is, you know, rependant upon references that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
what's with these kids and their baggy pants?
Yeah, exactly. You know, like there's a, you know, like, the guy who brings out a corded phone. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, like stuff
is
like,
your bank giving away these pens?
Yeah, exactly. All of those lines, and then that's not even getting into the part where it's like, oh, you know, that's probably nothing you can't really say that anymore, because you, sir, seem like a creepy old man hitting on a young lady on stage.
Yeah. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the About to Break podcast. 3 quick ways that you can help us out here at About to Break. The first one is to go on iTunes and leave us a review. If you enjoy the program, please leave us a 5-star review. Big thank you to everyone who's already done that. If you haven't yet, please jump over to iTunes. You'll need your iTunes account information. But you can click on the podcast, leave us a 5-star review. just leave us a 1 or 2 sentence little blurb there. Let people know what you like about it. That helps us out huge. Second way you can help us at About to Break is by becoming a producer. Our goal is to have 1,000 people giving at least $1 a month to help offset the cost of producing these shows, and it does take time. And it is a passion project. I will continue putting these out for free because I think it's a helpful conversation. But anything you can do to help us out by producing the show would be awesome. Go over to abouttobreakpodcast.com, click on Become a Producer, and see what that's all about. Last thing that you can do, and this one is also a real simple way of making a difference, is just sharing the podcast. All right, when you see it out there on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, go ahead and follow along and then share it with your friends. Let someone else know how much you liked it, because it sure does make a difference. All right, back to the program.
The first thing that I do when almost inevitably when I work with an act, because acts have hired me to sort of direct them and give them notes and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm notorious for breaking people down this way. Like that one of the best episodes of that podcast of Nick Paul's. Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh,
There you
yeah.
go.
John's got notes.
John's got notes. Which is a true, like, if you were my friend, you hang out in my circles, you know that's essentially what I'm doing as I'm sitting there giving notes on things. But almost inevitably, the first note I end up giving to any performer is stop picking women for every trick. Stop bringing up hot young chicks for every single trick that you have, because it seems as though, for the most part, the only thought that goes into spectator selection and how that spectator, how that guest on your stage is going to relate to the effect that you're performing and to you is, I would like to have sex with her. Yeah. That seems to be the only thing. And it's ridiculous, because I think most men, because let's be honest, most white men are magicians. Most magicians
are white men.
Most magicians are white men.
White men are magicians.
Oh, good point. Good point. No, you're right. That's definitely not. Yeah. Yes.
Most white men
strike
are
that.
Accountants, I think.
Yes, exactly. Yes, are accountants. But strike that. Reverse it. But yes. So they have a problem with that power play. So bringing another man up with them it feels weird. They need to feel like they have to have dominance, and that is a strange thing.
How about if you need magic to justify your life, don't do it? How about I mean, there's this thing Seinfeld talks about, like, here's a magician, here's a quarter, now it's gone, you're a jerk. Like, I'm smart, you're an idiot. Like, but you're right, like this power play thing, or the idea of, we talk so much, which is good from a performance standpoint. You should learn audience management. We talk about that a lot. We don't talk about audience care. Like you said, if I bring someone up, you said that person is the most important person on the stage.
They're the most important person on the stage.
But I would argue that 90% of magicians bring someone up, and that person is now a prop.
Oh yeah, human furniture.
They're going to be there to help me do what I need to do, so I can get applause, and then they're going to go away.
I can't tell you how. Another thing that you see with the guys are going from close up to parlor.
Yeah,
which is again the journey I'm on, is that they're used to being able to just, because they're right next to you, here, pick a card, put it back in, right? And that's the end of that exchange, right?
Yeah.
You need that to happen on stage now.
Right.
I can't tell you how often I see someone being, okay, come on up on stage, round of applause for Sally. Okay, Sally, pick a card. All right, put it back in. And they never seem to talk about Sally until the end of the trick. Yeah. And then she's dismissed. Like, literally, her only function was to pick the card and put it back. And then she's almost non-existent then the rest of the time.
Yeah.
You find no relationship between this person and the performer and what they're doing.
Right.
That happens very often. And I think sometimes just completely absent-minded. They just think, I need the card selected. I can't go to the audience, so that's what I'll do. Right. And that's it, But it's really weird to me that the majority of what has been written about magic, the history of magic, so on and so forth, has always been essentially dominated by white males.
Yeah.
And I am a white male. But I think we have to start looking outside of that if we want to grow. I think magic becomes so stagnant because we need other voices from other places. People, women, for example, people, or different, different colors, and you will races, creeds, so on and so forth, and you're seeing more of that come in. Some of the more predominant magicians now are people of color, but there needs to be even more of that. Like, I think that needs to be a much more representative of magic. Should be more representative of the people they're performing for. Yeah, and hopefully that's going to change. And I still think that we have a tendency as performers, as magicians, not to really genuinely relate to our audiences, not just in who the people we're bringing up to, but like make sure that what we're doing is something that is interesting and relatable to anybody of any walk of life, of any group, of any, and not just be like, and this is how I look at it as white male from this perspective from the 1980s.
Well, that's one of the best things about magic is it is universal. That's why you can travel and speak to people who speak a different language than you, and yet show them a magic trick, and you connect. Right. You know what I mean? And yet we're here in a room full of people that speak the same language, are living in the same place at the same time. Exactly. And somehow the performer isn't connecting, or is saying things that are offensive or are inappropriate. How much of that is because of a lack of creativity, and they're just saying the lines that were written in the 40s when that trick was published? Do you know what I mean? Or they're doing so-and-so's
I think it's laziness. There's laziness. There's that. There's lack of creativity. There's the fact that magic has a tendency to attract people who are not always interested in actually sort of creating in the art form. They're interested in just basically buying something, putting it on, and doing it because buy this and be cool, be the life of the party, that type of thing. And also, I think in some problems you have acts that their act worked that way so well for 20 years. Right. And now you're telling me that I can't do it the same way? These people are wrong, not me. Yeah. Because people have a hard time with change. I was at a convention recently, and I saw a performer do a lecture where the first 25 minutes of the lecture, and I'm not going to say who it was, but the first 25 minutes of the lecture was him explaining why he had to change this particular routine to fit as he very begrudgingly over and over again said, the Me Too movement. And he kept saying it like this, the Me Too movement. And he had to begrudgingly change this so that he can do that. And he spent 25 minutes on this. And I was with other performers, well-known performers in the back, and we were talking to each other, and we're like, why is he doing this? Why is it was ridiculous. And then at one point, I'll never forget this. He said, we're trying to get more people into the magic clubs, And no young people want to go to the magic clubs anymore. And a young African-American gentleman from the back of the room who's been doing some card stuff. It was amazing. I'd seen him in the convention. Yeah. And he popped up and he said, well, I tried to get in touch with the local IBM guy, and he wouldn't get in touch with me. And the lecturer said, "Whoa, did you call him?" He goes, "No, I emailed him." He goes, "Well, you got to call him." Right? Like I don't we're trying to get more people in.
Did you send a text?
Did you send a text? And it was so funny because then somebody in the audience went, "Yeah, you were saying that Right. You're looking for more people. I think you need to be able to talk to them on the in the way that they want to. In this case, email. Right. What does it matter if it's email or phone call?" And this performer was like, "Well, I mean, hey, it's if they want to work, if they want to perform, if they want to make a living, they got to be able to call people." Now, maybe that was true in 1980, but I can't tell you how many full gigs where I have never heard the person's voice.
They don't want to talk. They want to send you an email.
The entire time. There are agents to this day. I do not know what they sound like. I have no idea.
That's amazing.
And you're trying to tell me that no. Right. It was ridiculous. And because again, they're just stuck in this.
Well, and you also have oftentimes in these clubs, the people who are in charge of teaching or educating the next generation aren't workers. Yeah. So they don't know how it works. They're explaining how they read it works from a book from the 30s. They don't know how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, but
we can be better, guys. We can be better.
We can be better. You know, and that's what makes me very. I think I really, really love the AMA as much as, like I said, it was very depressing to me at certain times. I love the AMA because the AMA has always had people, at least women, on their boards.
Oh yeah,
always. The president was Erica, and now she's the chairman of the board of trustees. And there's been the last chairman of the board was Joan Lawton. I mean, there's always been at least people there that were not just the standard white male, you know. Right. And I'm happy about that, and I think they have that club is a very fostering place, and I have a complete respect for Kayla and Carissa who are doing the Shazam podcast. I think that is so good and so warranted, and I love that they have been really looking at this from, I wouldn't say both sides, because I don't think it's a both sides issue in this. No, but they've been looking at it from all points of view. Yes, and I think that's what's really, really great. You
know, and I feel like I grew up with this a different kind of ignorance. I mean, growing up in LA and being around all sorts of people, like I never thought, until I started traveling full time as a performer, I didn't realize racism was as huge as it is. I didn't realize like chauvinistic bigotry and all this stuff like was as huge of a deal as it is, because that's just not the circle or the people that I grew up with, you know? And even like because I recently had Kayla on the show and we were talking about the Shazam pod, and I've been listening to their episodes, and I called my wife. I was listening to like their third episode and I'm calling my wife from the road as I'm listening. I say, I always thought, and this is so stupid for me to say, and I shouldn't even say it, but I'm going to say it. I always thought women weren't doing as much magic because women just didn't like magic as much as dorky little boys who were trying to impress somebody. Like, I never once thought, oh, there's women who want to be in this thing, but people aren't giving them opportunities. And I'm like, how ridiculous for me to think that way, to not consider that. I mean, even having 2 daughters who are interested in it, and like, you know, so it's one of those things where I think it goes back to just getting outside of your own life and your own circle and your own business and go, what can I do to help other people do the thing they want to do?
I recently decided that there's this weird thing that Facebook has been doing where in like certain Facebook groups, they have mentors.
I saw that. I don't know anything about it, but I saw that.
And so the AMA has group started a mentor thing, and I'm like, oh, all right, I'll do that. Yeah. And the first person who signed up was a woman named Simone, who has been doing a lot of magic around the castle and other places. And I leave this today. I leave this podcast, and I'm going to go work with her.
That's great.
And what I love about it is that I genuinely just want to foster as much good magic as possible. Yeah. Period. I don't care where it comes from. Yeah. I just want it to be good magic. Yep. And if in that we get to have some people who aren't coming from the same point of view as we've always had, that's even better. Yeah. That's super better. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited about like working with people who have a different take on things, you know? Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen her do anything. I was watching her videos, and she's just herself. And I think what's I think the best acts that are the ones where you're just getting to be yourself in some way. Yeah, you know. You either have to be, and I'm taking this right out of my friend Simon Cornell's. This is something he actually said, but you either have to be a big C character. Like a big C character, like a capital C, like a character, like Mac King is a character. Yeah, totally. The great Tom Sony, when he's actually performing as a Tom Sony, is a character. Yes. So you have to be a big C character, or find the parts of you to be a small C character that then Reynolds out. Because anything in between is just this weird like, I don't know if I really want to watch that type of thing. So, I mean, because in comedy, I mean, Emo Phillips or acts that like were characters, they work.
Right.
You don't have to be like introspective comedy guy to make it work.
In the comedy scene, and the more I work in it, the more friends I have that are stand-ups, it is from day one, the conversation is, who are you on stage? Who is your character? What is your persona?
Right.
How are you, who are you as a person, and how are you elevating that on stage? But in magic, day one, it's what trick do I want to do?
Right, exactly.
And oftentimes, as little kids, we get into this, and it's like, whether you're shy or you had stuff going on, and this is your way of having an outlet. So you go and you do the trick someone else came up with, and you say the words they came up with. And I think a lot of times people haven't taken the time to really go, who am I? What is important to me? What do I want to communicate?
Well, you've heard Max's thing on this, right? Max Maimon's thing on this?
I don't know that I have.
This is great. And I'm hoping I'm quoting this properly. But if you had a tapestry on the wall, a beautiful, ornate tapestry on the wall.
Yeah.
And one of the things you could do that tapestry was hang it on the wall and look at it, because it'd be a beautiful thing. It'd be a perfectly good thing to do with a tapestry. Be they hang it on the wall and look at it.
Yeah.
But let's say that room had a fire, and somebody actually was actually on fire.
Wow.
It'd be a perfectly, absolutely great thing and smart thing to do, to pull the tapestry off the wall and wrap that person in the blanket so that they would douse the fire.
Yeah.
But it probably wouldn't be the best thing to do to the tapestry.
Yeah.
And that's what he's saying about magic. He's saying that like magic is this really great thing, and we're wrapping people who are on fire in the magic, so they don't have to actually, have to come out.
Yeah.
And it's not the best thing to do the tapestry. It's a perfectly good thing to do to save somebody who's on fire, but it might not be the best use of the tapestry.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what has happening when you get a guy who just wants to be the life of the party, and and he's just doing the tricks exactly the same way. Can't tell you how many acts that I've seen where the guy starts out as Michael Lamar and then goes into Daryl, and then
I said that. He pulls out the rope and he's Michael Finney, and then he pulls out this
exactly,
thing.
He goes through the whole thing. And superhero theory, the thing that I talk about that the tricks we do, the actual effects that we do, have everything to do with our character. I think like you have to define your powers, which is how I mean like a superhero is defined by their powers,
right? And
so we should be defined by our powers. We should be defined by what we can do and what we can't do.
Yeah,
and I think that's almost as interesting as what we can't do, finding weaknesses as magicians. And so that came from watching an act one day do, and I'm not exaggerating, a coin trick, a blindfold act, escape act, and then going into Q&A. I'm not joking. I'm like, what is that? What power? Who are you?
Yeah.
And comic book writers will tell you one of the hardest characters to write in all of comics fandom is Superman.
Huh.
And why is he so hard to write? Because he's very unrelatable, because he's essentially unstoppable.
Yeah.
And in fact, there was no kryptonite within the first 10 years of the publication of Superman.
Really?
The reason why that came is because they were so sick of him having no real weaknesses.
Yeah.
That they had to create something to give him a weakness, so they could find a way to make him relatable, to put him down so they can rise back up again.
Yeah.
His being susceptible to magic was the same thing.
Right.
They needed yet another way to be able to make him so that, because again, he was too powerful, which is where Batman became so popular, because Superman predates Batman by a few years, and Batman became so popular because he was just a guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that was and you could relate to him, even though he was super rich. You could relate to the idea that he was on this sort of war on crime, and he was just a guy.
Yep.
And a lot of the power, and then where the DC sort of had these sort of like powerful superheroes that were sort of like all either really good, like very good, truth, justice, American way.
Yeah.
When Stan Lee just sadly died today, and he will be missed, but when he created all the Marvel characters in the 60s, they were all people who had powers but with problems. They had something relatable about it. Spider-Man had these powers, but he was pay the rent, and he still had to finish his math test.
Yeah.
And that's what made him interesting. The Fantastic Four were the Marvel's first characters. They had these powers, but they were sort of doomed by them because he was the Thing was this powerful guy, but he looked like a rock monster.
Yeah.
And how you're able to then relate to people when you have these powers, but they can't relate to you.
Right.
Where the X-Men comes from and so on and so forth. And that's interesting. That's where magic should be going. We should be talking about like what I do when I take this paper and rip it up and then restore it.
Right.
That's the power. I can do that.
Yeah.
But what can't I do? Why? Or because I ripped up this paper, what other thing happened? What cause did that paper happen?
Right.
Like, did that did because I use the power here, did someone die in the next room? You know, and obviously that's the weird mundane thing. But I mean, like, but what happened? Like, as I did this, and wouldn't it be much more interesting if you ripped up the paper and then you restored the paper. And their paper was restored, but then blood started trickling down your nose.
Yeah,
that power, the power to restore the paper, really had an effect on you. It's like when you see like people use psychic powers and they get really weak, or or something happens to them. Their hair turns gray or whatever. Something happens to like.
There have to be stakes for people to care about.
Yeah, exactly. If they know it's a trick, it's a trick. And don't be wrong, you can play tricks as tricks.
Right.
But if you want to have something that's more interesting, and a connection to it, then maybe exploring these superhero ideas is the way to really bring something else out.
And even if you are going to play tricks as tricks, why are you doing this trick?
Right, exactly.
Why is this so important to you?
And what about your character does this affect me? Mm-hmm. Like, why are you the master of paper tearing and restoring? Like, what did that do? Are you an origami master?
Right.
It's the same thing where, and this is a very old thought exercise. I claim none of this of what I'm about to say, but the idea is if I take the coin and I put the coin in my hand,
right,
and I open my hand and the coin is gone, what is that? It's coin vanish. But what really happened?
Yeah.
What did I do to that coin to make it vanish?
Right.
Now, not
what is the audience? Yeah.
What did I do? Did I shrink it so that it's so small you can't see it? Did it
vaporize?
Did I make it transport to another location?
Is it still there, but it's invisible?
It's still there, invisible. Exactly. What could I do to that coin? And that's far more interesting than, look, here's a coin, it's in my hand, it's gone, you're a jerk, right?
Right.
But instead, if I said, look, if I take this coin and we actually stare at it, it's a very shy coin. It's so shy, it doesn't like to be looked at. It's so shy.
Right.
It looks like it's not there. And then if I ran into it and picked up the invisible coin and then said, look away, just a second, look back, and he's back. Now the coin's back. That is a far more interesting thing than, look, your coin is gone.
There's in storytelling, there's a good storyteller has to propose a major dramatic question. And they introduce it toward the top. And that's the reason why you're going to listen to the rest of the story, or you're going to watch the rest of the movie. Is the couple going to get together at the end of the movie?
Right.
Is he going to be alone on New Year's Eve? Is Thanos going to get the final Infinity Stone? Like, we're watching the show to see if that thing's going to happen. And so often magicians will go, "This is great because it's great. Watch it," rather than go, "Here's a reason why this is important. Here's a reason why," even with, you watch Illusionists. I mean, how many people have you seen do the Selbit Wakeling sawing in half?
Sure.
Hundreds, right?
Yeah, a few people.
When Kaylin and Ginger do it, people care because at the time they do it, they feel like they've gotten to know her. Now they care about what happens when she goes in the box. You know, it's. And
I there's like another thing I was. With building stand-up stuff that I was sort of animate about like getting people up and actually figuring out the relationships with them, figuring out your relationship with the tricks that you're doing. And the other thing I thought about was that I feel like there's usually what ends up happening with most stand-up acts, not most, I shouldn't say that, but a lot of stand-up acts I've seen, is that they come on stage and they go, "Hi, I'm John the magician, and now I need to get somebody out of the audience to tell me how something."
Yeah.
And now they go, and then they do a trick, and they go, "Thank you very much. Okay, and now I need another 2 volunteers." And then basically the entire show becomes pulling people out of the audience, and that's it.
Right. Yeah.
So there's no moment there where the magician actually is on stage solo doing magic.
Yep.
And getting the people to understand who they are. And one of the things I heard when I started doing the cruise ship market, because I started in the ultra luxury line cruises, Silver Sea and Seaboard and things like that. And I'm not doing that as much anymore. In fact, actually, I'm not doing that at all anymore. But that's where I started. These people never want to get on stage. They don't want to get on stage. They don't want to get up. They want to sit in their seats the whole time.
Right.
So I thought, how am I going to get how am I going to get them up? And B, if I don't want to get up, what am I going to do? And so I had this idea that I would just make sure for a good amount of the time they knew who I was.
Yeah.
So I came out and I did magic and I talked to them and I was conversational with them, but at the same time, no one was getting on stage. Yeah. And then I would do another trick and no one got on stage.
Yeah.
And so they were just they got used to who I was. And then eventually I kind of did what I like to call like a bridge piece, where I would go out and I would do something where I would physically go out to the audience.
Yep.
Have someone stand up or something, do something. They didn't have to go on stage, and then I would come back up. So now I'm slowly working them in, like toss out deck. Well, I don't do toss out deck, but toss out deck was a good example of something trick where they're standing up, but they're not really on stage. And then now that they know who I am, now that they know exactly what I'm about, when I do go out and grab somebody and bring them up on stage, they're far more willing to do that because they know who I am. They understand what's going on.
So good.
And they feel like they don't have I don't think anyone walks into a show going, oh man, can't wait to get on stage. I always go to the shows where I have to get on stage and perform for people. I think most people want to see a performer perform for them first before they then are willing to then help out with something.
Yeah.
And so if I do a 45-minute show, I spend the first 20 minutes of it without getting somebody on stage.
That's great.
And I'm very animate about that. Like, I think like they need to know who you are. They need to be able to trust you.
Right.
And then you'll be able to, and then I never have an issue getting anybody up.
Yeah. Well, and most people not only don't want to go on stage, but like the fear of public speaking is like the number one fear.
Or they think you're going to make fun of them because they've seen people in the past bring people up and make fun of them.
Well, and how many magicians will bring someone up? You bring someone up, you do a trick, and you make fun of someone, or you talk about their weird shirt or whatever, and then you send them back to their seat, and then you wonder why you can't get anyone else to want to come up.
Exactly.
It's like you've just told the audience, if I go on stage, this person's going to ridicule me.
Right.
Or if that first person that you bring up, whether it's in the first 5 minutes or do like you're saying, wait a good amount of time into the show, you bring them up, you honor them, you make them the star, people are applauding them, they have a great experience and a good memory, everyone's going to want to come up and play.
Right. You know? And that's the thing. I mean, I do a bit in my show where I get a guy up and he's on the stage for a lot of time. Another thing that I say is that if you can take two tricks that involve you getting two people getting a person up on stage, right, and you can put them together, just do that.
Yeah.
As opposed to it being, okay, I'm going to do a trick and thank you very much. Okay, now I'll do another trick. You know.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I'd rather take those two pieces and put together and use the same guy. That way we're not constantly going back and forth for the audience.
Right.
And so now then, I have a trick where I bring a guy up and there is some, like comic byplay. Like there's stuff where this guy is I'm not necessarily making fun of him, but we're having fun. We're having fun. We're having, there's a couple things that he gets wrong, I think. But by the end of it, he's totally the hero. So he leaves the hero. So even if at one point, like, you can still kind of play and you can still kind of like rib a little bit.
Right.
You don't have to completely abandon that. You don't have to like bring the guy up and make him king for the day.
Right.
But at the same time, like as long as he ends it thinking like that was fun, I'm so glad I did that. It's there you go. And another thing that like I really love when it comes to like that spectator thing is like, I think it's important to have these solo pieces. I call them in one pieces, which is not the real meaning of in one. In one is actually just meaning to be in front of the curtain, in front of the main curtain. Yeah. But in one for me is in solo performance.
Yep.
And I always do, like I said, 20 minutes.
Yep. And
it's only the last 3 or 4 minutes that I'm actually in the house.
Yep.
And then get somebody up. But then if I'm going to do another trick after that, I always do another in one piece.
It's just you on stage.
Just me on stage.
Yep, it's good.
Before I get another person or group of people or whatever I'm going to do to the next group, because I want them to keep remembering me. So it's the thing of like, I start on stage by myself, I end on stage with myself, and every time there's people on stage, in between those tricks, there's at least one interstitial in one piece in between that, and it works really well for me. I can't say that is the blueprint for all of magic, but it works very well for me because people will walk out and they feel like they have an idea who I am, because all the pieces are about talking about my life. Like my opening pieces, I talk about, like, I'm originally from Orlando, Florida, cultural center of the world, land of opportunity, if you're a roller coaster. And I talk about my life and things that really happen. I grew up in a trailer park, and that's true. And that I do this a routine I have. I put it on the act, the Penguin Act thing. And it's Bill Abbott's 5-card box thing. But it's my routine, and because people always say personalize things and make it your own, right? Well, no one's ever really, I don't think, ever given a real good guide to how do you personalize and how do you make things your own. And I think I've done that because I don't teach a trick at all. The trick is not taught. I say, if you want to do this trick, it's Bill Abbott's, go buy it. And Bill gave me permission to talk about it.
That's great.
But I don't teach it. And I changed the cards, I changed the prop, and I made the prop make sense to me because I talk about growing up in a trailer park. And I'm not doing the same amazing and all that stuff. I'm not doing that. I'm like doing a routine that's totally sort of about me and my life. And so now the next piece I do is a piece in which I take off my tie and I do a rope routine with my tie that ends with me talking. It starts with me talking about, as a kid, I always thought that a bow tie was just a way you tied a regular tie, which is absolutely true. I thought if you thought you took a tie and the way you tied it turned it into a bow tie. And then I realized it looks stupid, and then that's why I do like a rope through neck type of thing. And then at the end of the routine, I do this whole ring and rope routine. At the end of the routine, the tie turns into a little bow tie, and I wear the bow tie the rest of the show as opposed to the long tie.
That's great.
So now we have this piece that people are reminded of that. I'm talking about my life through all of that. And they have gotten to know me in the first 3 pieces. The first thing I come out and do is I say perfectly ordinary blue round thing. Perfectly ordinary blue round thing. Watch, I wake my hand and look, it becomes a hamper. Thank you. It's my new show, The Magic of IKEA. And then I do this bottle production, and it's a Coke bottle. I produce a big one of those Mexico Coke bottles. And I produce a Coke bottle, but from like this toilet paper. And it's just, I'm just talking about me and my life and the stupid things I do on the road. And that's sort of the more jovial piece than, the instant production, which then goes into the piece where I talk about my life growing up in a trailer park in Orlando, Florida. And then finally, the third piece of this sort of, trilogy, for lack of a better term, of my life is the ring and rope routine. That it's not really about my life, but it starts with a story about me and it sort of ends with a story about me. And then that's it. So that they know who I am in 15 minutes. That's 15 minutes without a spectator on stage, and they know who I am. They understand it. I'm a dork who likes comic books and movies and theme parks, and I like to dress up, and that's who I am. And so now the next piece after that, which changes a lot of my show, they're far more receptive because they're like, oh, this guy, I know this guy. He's a fun guy. And that's super important to me for that. Anyway, it's super important for me that they know me before I then ask them to join me on stage. And the people that I choose then are the people that I bring up are the people that I feel are going to work and make sense for that piece. If I do a piece that's related to cards, okay, and I'm going to bring somebody up that I feel like plays cards, and we're going to talk about that, and I'm openly asking the audience for those kind of people. You see what I'm saying? And I do a piece where I need to borrow a ring, like a finger ring. And so I borrow the finger ring, and the woman I bring up is usually an older woman. Purposely, I choose an older woman because I want a story about the ring, and I let her tell the story about the ring. And usually what ends up happening is they'll say, "Oh, it's a wedding ring," or something very basic, very small. And I'm like, no, there's got to be more. Go ahead, tell me more. And then depending on whether or not there actually is a long story with it, I will invent the story with it, and then she sort of goes along with it, That's one way of doing it.
These are all ways too to make sure that it feels different every time, and that the audience doesn't want to come and go, "We saw the show he does." They want to go, "The show we saw, this happened."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but what happens sometimes is that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes enough that it's it's good to do.
Yeah.
I get a story. I get a really good story.
Yeah.
And then that story makes that ring so important.
Yep.
So that when I do that whole routine, it matters so much.
Yeah.
And that is to me, that's far more interesting than, can I borrow the ring? Is this your ring? Let me look at the initials. Oh, it says TIN. Ha 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 ha. Oh, made it in China. Okay.
Yeah.
No. Right. And so I told them about me. They're going to tell me about themselves.
Yeah.
And hopefully that goes back to my theory that maybe if I make them think of me as a friend, they'll be more interested in the show.
That's great, man. Well, and these are the type of things you have to do if you want people to remember you, and not because we all have, as being a magician, everyone wants to tell you about the magic show they saw.
Sure.
But no one ever remembers the magician. They always go, "We were on the ship and the guy did this trick and he did that. What was his name? I don't remember."
People approach me and they say my name. I'm very happy. They say they might not remember my last name, but they know my name is Jon.
Yeah.
Because I say my name is Jon over and over again.
Yeah.
Here's something that every performer.
Yeah.
I'll give you note number 2. Note number one.
Yeah.
Stop using women for every trick.
Stop using what?
Stop using women for every trick.
Yes. That's
note number 1. Note number 2. Number 2.
Yeah.
When you bring somebody on stage.
Yes.
Genuinely ask them their name.
Yep.
Listen to their name.
Yep.
Repeat it back to them, and then introduce yourself.
Yes. That is,
That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
You just have to say it. Anytime you have an excuse to say your name, say your name.
Uh-huh.
And be like, so what is your name? Taylor. Hi, nice to meet you, Taylor. I am Jon Armstrong. You might have seen me before. That type of thing. Some sort of thing, I'm up here. Whatever it is. Usually there's big banners or like on video screens that have my name on them. I'm like, I'm Jon. I'm that guy.
Yeah.
Just to bring it back to who I am. And that came from watching my mentor, Terry Ward.
Yeah.
Who, without fail, every single time when he performs at Disney, every single little kid that comes up, he says, "What is your name?" And the kid says, "Tommy." And he goes, Tommy, so good to meet you, Tommy. Tommy, I'm Jack Diamond, Hollywood talent agent. That's the character he plays. That's fun. I'm Jack Diamond, and he does a bit. And he has every single time. And people walk away and they know the character's name. Yeah. Everybody knows it. And
it's brilliant.
And also it just relates because how many times have you seen a guy bring a person up? Your name, what's your name? Tommy. Nice to meet you, Tommy. Okay, so we're gonna boom.
Yeah, that is one of the smartest things I've done is introduce myself to every volunteer on stage.
So you already do this, I guess.
I do that.
Yeah.
That's a big one, man.
Yeah, you have to. I think you have to do that. I think that's super smart, and then letting them acknowledge you.
Yeah.
Acknowledge that because when you say my name is Jon Armstrong, they usually will respond in some way back to you. Mm. I mean, I'm sure you do this, know this. So they were like, nice to meet you, Jon. They say usually nice to meet you, Jon. They say something back to that so that it's a real sort of, an actual a greeting between two people. It doesn't feel like, hello, piece of furniture, move over here. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Like, we got to stop treating our guests on stage like background actors in movies. Right. Those guys are getting paid.
Thanks for coming from Central Casting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, move over there. Like, no. Those guys are getting paid $100 a show or a day or whatever it is. Right. They can be treated like that. We can't treat those people like that. Right. That's how it works, you know? Yeah. And sort of related to this, but I will give you my not the third piece of like advice, but like a thing I do very much. I believe very heavily in active compliment taking.
Okay.
So this changed my life, and I mean this. I'm here. I will share it with you all today.
Here it is.
Taylor, I just saw your show. Okay. Come up to you, and I say, "Hey, I saw your show. It was great."
Thank you.
Okay. Say, I think you just did something wrong.
Tell me what did I do wrong?
So I want you to compliment my show.
Hey, John, just saw your set there in the theater. It was fantastic.
Oh, thanks. What is your name?
Taylor.
Hey, Taylor. Nice to meet you, Taylor. Taylor's super nice of you to say. I really appreciate that, Taylor. We'll see you around.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
See, here's the thing. I think, especially in the social media age, whatever.
Yeah.
It becomes very disingenuous to just immediately take the compliment and say thank you.
Yeah.
I think people feel a little bit like, well, he always just says thank you. Like, if every single time someone compliments my show, I instead ask them who they are. Yeah. They remember me in a way that says, oh, he cares that I complimented him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Me responding back to them with, if you say, I loved your show. Oh, thanks. What is your name?
Yeah.
That's all. It's immediately what I say. Oh, thanks. What is your name? And they say their name, and I repeat their name back to them, and I say, well, thank you very much. So thanks for coming to the show. Yeah. And now I look like, I mean, whether I do or not, you can fake sincerity, you can make it. But they feel like I've actually listened to their compliment and responded to it. And again, I started doing this, and I always had pretty decent ratings on the ships, but then I started doing this,
right?
And then, whoosh,
wow,
because they instantly know that I am listening to them.
Yeah. And
the best is when, as long as I say it enough times in a little small conversation, I usually can remember them. So if I see them around the ship, I remember the name. Yeah. And they love that too. And so that's all part of it. Yeah. And
well, it's genuinely caring about people.
Yeah.
They notice the difference.
Actively taking the response. So if you say anything, so if you say you come to my show and you say it was a great show, and I say thanks, what was your name, and they say that, and I say, well, great, and then sometimes if I have a long line of people or something, right, I will say, well, what was your favorite part? Again, I'm asking them what they liked.
Yeah.
And listening to them, and they are responsive to that. So it becomes less about, because I think the worst way to take a compliment is this. If you say, I enjoyed the show, and I immediately then go, oh, thanks.
Yeah. That's it.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I've just shut down.
Yeah.
Like, their major goal, in my opinion, to come up to talk to me was not to compliment me. That compliment was their to be able for me to speak to them, because they wanted to talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where it is. So actively taking the compliment, it's been so important to me.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a great note. That's really good.
Thanks.
It's happening.
Yeah, no, you got to do it. And it's really good when I think there's versions of it. You get a long line of people, they're shaking your hand after a show, that type of thing, and it's like, what is your name, Tommy? Hey, Tommy, great, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hope to see you around. And you have to dismiss them because you need to get to the next person in line, but it doesn't feel dismissive. It's like they understand, they can see the line. Yeah. But when you then have them come up to you, around the ship or something, or at the end of the bar at the end of the show or whatever it is,
right? Yeah.
And they come up to you and say, oh, it was a great show, and you say, thanks, what's your name, blah blah blah. You ask them, what did you like about the show, and sometimes if I will say, is there anything you think I could do better? Is there anything, I will literally just ask them for advice, because that's what they want,
right? Yeah.
And then I ask them what they do, and blah blah blah, and it's been really good. I'll tell you where it's been super good for me is I do workshops, and you sell your little magic tricks, and so I do my show. And this sort of greeting, and I see them around the ship for a day or so, and then I'm talking to them, and I say, when they come up to me, I say, oh, yeah, I got the thing at 2 today. If you want to come by, I'm going to teach them some cool tricks, hope you learn some. And my sales have gone up because, again, I'm just talking to them, and they're like, oh, my friend John's doing it. I can't miss that. It's a C day anyway. Might as well go see it. And so they go see it, and then they see, blah, 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 and I teach them how to do the tricks, and they're like, and then if you guys want to come over and say hi afterwards, I'm selling the DVDs, and they all come back because I know I'm friendly, so they come back and they spy. So it's really, it's good, it's not, it feels like it's by saying it like that, it's disingenuous, but I think we always are thankful people compliment our shows. It's not that I feel you're disingenuous, or anyone's disingenuous because you just said thank you and moved on. Right. It's not that. It's just that I think
that wasn't the point of them coming up to you.
That wasn't the point of them coming up to them.
And by not continuing the conversation,
Exactly.
you're not giving them the experience they need.
They wanted.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted. And again,
That's why people buy band T-shirts.
Yeah.
They want to talk to the band.
They want to talk to the band.
Yeah.
No one, no one really wants that shirt.
Yeah.
But that's part of it. And I think like the more we are able to be as conversational, both on stage and off stage, and relatable, that makes us better performers and gets away from the the thing we've talked about a couple times where here's a quarter ball, you're a jerk, and that's it. I mean, like we will always have an advantage over the Marvel Cinematic Universe or anything you can see on TV or in film, which is the fact that it's live, it's in person, and it's real.
Happening right in front of you.
Air quotes real.
Right.
We have that advantage, but we still need to be. Then, if that's the advantage, if being real is the advantage, why be fake?
Yeah.
Right. If they get fake, they can watch Thanos be fake.
Right.
And that's far more spectacular than anything you're going to do, Magic Boy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They can watch that.
Right.
So if you have the opportunity to be real, be real. Be as real as you possibly can be, because then they feel like they walked out of it with a real experience that they couldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
The worst thing would be for them to feel like, well, I could have stayed home and watched Netflix and I would have been far more entertained.
Yeah.
That's it.
This goes back, the greeting thing you're saying afterward, everything you're saying about on stage, it all comes down, I think, to the fact that as a performer, are you going on stage to take something from people or to give something to people?
Right.
And everything you're describing to me sounds like you have this approach of, I want to give them an experience. I want them to be the hero on stage. I want them to be able to have the conversation they want to have. Like so many performers, I think they go, I need an audience to watch me do the thing so I can get applause or I can feel good about myself. And if you just shift your mindset to go, hey, what can I do to help that person have a better day, to help them have a entertaining experience or a memorable moment or something like that, it really does. You'll notice a shift in your performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how it has to be. I mean, all the trends now for any type of theme park or live show or anything is interactivity.
Right.
That's where the trend is. I mean, the
immersive experiences.
Immersive experiences.
Yeah.
We need to feel that same trend.
Yep.
We need to be able, and if as immersive as you can be as immersive as I do my show and I'm more communicative and I talk to more people and then afterwards I'm talking to them and giving them an experience.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to like create some gigantic like labyrinth thing they walk through a theme park. Right. It just means you have to like treat them not as the other side of a screen.
Yeah.
They have to just they're there at a happening that is only going to happen this one time, this one moment, and they're going to experience this happening, and then afterwards you're all going to be able to talk about the happening together.
Yeah.
That's what actually I think. Hopefully, if more people do that, that will save us from basically just being devoured by every single brand technology that's going to be out there.
Yeah.
People ask me that. Laymen ask me that. Like, does advances in technology performance, does that ever scare you? And I go, like, no.
It makes this more valuable.
Exactly. This is becoming much more valuable.
Yeah.
So.
Dude, this is friggin' awesome. We're at an hour and a half.
All right, let's go. I need to go home.
Yeah. Well, I know you got another appointment.
I do.
John, this has been amazing. How can people get a hold of you if they want to either see what you're doing, follow along on the journey, or if they want to reach out? I know that you do consulting work and things like that.
Sure. You can reach me at I'm on the Facebooks and the Twitters, but really it's just mostly just me rambling off about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so don't worry about that. But if you want to get a hold of me, my website is cardjon, cardjon.com, cardjon.com, info@cardjon.com is my email. And I'm and then also, if I can do a small plug of the Penguin lecture that I did for Penguin Live. If you take a look on the Penguin site, you can just look at my name and find it there. It's called Penguin Live Act, and it talks about a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about right now. That's it.
That's great. If you're listening right now, I'll put links to both of those, to John's website and to the Penguin lecture. You can go purchase that. Just click on the show notes, and you'll see a link there. I'm going to turn this off, but we can keep talking.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye.